The meeting is being live streamed. Please only speak when invited to by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communications via the chair. Will everyone please ensure that their mics are muted when they're not speaking? When speaking, be succinct and do not exceed the allocated timeframes highlighted at the start of the hearing. If you're referring to a specific page or picture in a report, refer to the page number. If you're having technical difficulties, please use the chat function. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the subcommittee. Any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting. If there is more than one application, the parties are advised that after each application is heard in turn, as set out in the agenda pack, the subcommittee will not retire after each application. Applicants and all other parties will be asked to leave the proceedings after their item is concluded. Once all applications have been considered, any remaining parties will be asked to log out of the hearing. Please do so promptly so the councillors will have the opportunity to deliberate and make a decision on each application they have heard. Each party will be notified of the decision within 5 working days. Please could I ask the subcommittee to appoint a chair?
Can I nominate Councillor Smith, please?
Thank you, Councillor.
That's great. Thank you very much, everyone. And Peter, maybe if you want to move to a different, quieter room, that'd be good. So welcome everyone to this licensing subcommittee E, Tuesday the 29th of November at 2 o'clock. I hope you've all got a pack in front of you. It's got the agenda in there. But before we start, we'll skip around the room very quickly to introduce ourselves. I'm Councillor Smith. I'm currently chairing this. I'm a councillor in Stoke Newington Ward and also the chair of licensing. Councillor Root.
Hello, I'm Penny Root, councillor for Victoria Ward.
Fantastic. And Suba?
I'm Suba Shree, I'm a principal licensing officer who will be presenting the report.
Fantastic. Amanda?
Good afternoon, Amanda North, solicitor supporting members this afternoon. Thank you.
That's great. And I've got Jules.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jules Lemire. I'm one of the directors of Hackney Social.
Okay, thank you, Jules. Just writing that down quickly. And I have Ben.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm one of the directors for the Hackney Social.
Okay, thank you for that. Just writing that down. And then we've got Mr. Hughes.
Councillor Smith, thank you. I'm here representing Hackney Central today in the application for a new licence.
Well, Hackney Social, yeah?
Hackney Social, sorry. Hackney Social.
Yep, brilliant. Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes. And then we have Jack.
Hi there, my name is Jack Robinson. I'm one of the final directors of the Hackney Social.
Okay, so, I mean, when it comes to you guys, do you all want to speak, or is one of you going to speak on this?
I think myself and
I will kick off, as I do normally in front of these hearings.
Yep. Okay.
And I propose that the clients, Jack and Jules and Ben, address you on any questions, because I'm sure there'll be questions from members.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. And then I have Richard.
Good afternoon, Chair. Richard Vivian from Big Sky Acoustics. I'm a noise expert for the applicant, and I prepared the noise impact assessment that you have in your bundle.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have Asita. Apologies if I pronounced your name wrong. You can.
That's fine. It's Asita Ranatunga. Thank you, councillors. I'm here for the second application on your list, which is the Dolphin.
It's the first one, isn't it?
Is it the first one? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's item agenda 5. It comes before the other one. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. And then Mahir.
Good afternoon, Chair members. My name is Mahir. I've got Nuit Yildiz, the license holder of the Dolphin, next to me.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Hi there. Right, I think and then we've got PC Giles.
Hello, Chair. It's myself and Acting Sergeant Kerry Ryan, and we are here for the Dolphin.
Brilliant. Excellent. So I think we've done everyone, and excuse me if I've left somebody out. I don't think I have, because my screen's not completely full, so I think we've got everybody. So thank you, everyone, for that. So we've done election of chair. So agenda item 2 is apologies for absence, and we do have one apology from Councillor Sizer. Agenda item 3 is, are there any declarations of interest from members?
No.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. And then, so agenda item 5 is where I kind of outline the hearing procedure. So we've done step 1, which is the appointment of chair. Step 2, the licensing officer will outline the report. By the way, we are looking at the Dolphin first of all, which is agenda item 5. And then the police, as the applicant for this one, will come in to highlight their reasons for objecting to the application. Any other persons after that? And I don't think there are any other persons. In fact, we have responsible authorities as well. We don't have anyone from the Environmental Protection team here for this one, do we? Amanda? Can't hear you.
No, we don't have anyone, Chair. Just wanted to clarify that Bohemia Place is actually the first item that's being heard this afternoon, and the second
really?
item will be the Dolphin, which will be heard in closed session.
Apologies for
I
this.
just wanted to
I wasn't
clarify
aware of
that.
that. Sorry,
It's okay.
everyone.
I was trying to wait for a reasonable point to let you know. Just to confirm that Bohemia Place is the first item. So if the parties for the second item wanted to come back at 2:30, they can. Or alternatively, they can stay on the call. It's entirely a matter for them. But basically, we're dealing with Bohemia Place first because it's a very short item, and the second item, and then have the rest of the time. And also because it's in closed session, that's the reason why it has to be heard second.
Okay, sorry,
you.
folks, for that confusion. Apologies. Okay, so we're going to move on to Bohemia Place then. Where were we? So step 4, let me just check we've had the police withdraw, we've had environmental health withdraw from this one, so there's still licensing. So step 4 would be inviting the licensing team to come in and present their case. There are no other persons on this one, as far as I'm aware. And then step 6 is the discussion. The previous ones are 5 minutes each. The discussion is about 15 minutes roughly. Step 7, closing remarks. Step 8, final point of clarification. And then step 9, we'll basically ask you to leave, and then we can go on to consider it later when the meeting's over. So if I could go to step 2 initially and invite the licensing officer to outline the report, please. Thank you, Suba.
Thank you, Chair. So the first item we're going to consider this afternoon is for a premises license under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for Bohemia Place Market, 11 Bohemia Place, for regulated entertainment, late night refreshment, and to authorize the supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises as stated within the report. Police and environmental enforcement have withdrawn their representation based on agreed conditions. Representation still remains from licensing. We have received additional information from the applicant, and this document has been circulated, and have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
That's great. Thank you very much, Suba. And I'd like to invite Mr. Hughes now to present the applicant's case. Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes.
Chair, I'm sorry, can I just intervene for a moment, please? Sorry. I just wanted to clarify with the licensing officer, has Councillor Ozen made a representation in this application?
No.
No, he hasn't. Okay. Councillor Ozen, as you haven't made any representations.
Not as a representation. I have spoken to.
Yes, I know. I'm aware of that.
Member of public.
Trying to explain. No, members of the public don't actually attend
Okay, in that case,
link. Peter, would you be able to assist Councillor Ozen with the link to attend the external meeting link?
I think he has been sent the link.
Can you please send it to him again? Sorry, do apologise, but we want to make sure that we're procedurally operating correctly. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Hughes, you can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hughes. Off you go.
Well, thank you, Chairman. As last week, Chairman, I wonder if I could just tax you for just a few more minutes longer than the 5. I'll be under the 10 as I did last week.
Yeah, I think you were about 7 or something, weren't you, around about there?
Yes, I think I was. So I might take about 8, Chairman, if that's okay with you.
Okay, off you go.
Thank you for that. As you see, and as it's just been described, this is an application for a new premises license. There is in place a current premises license for the premises, which was granted in the middle of the pandemic back in 2020 with limited hours, and then only until July 23. There were then issues arising at the time about the landlord, the immediate landlord of the premises, Archco, seeking a long lease with Network Rail. That was eventually secured for 150 years. And now there is a bit more certainty going forward with all the units in Bohemia Place, hence the application. We've got to make this application anyway because the license expires next July, but we apply for different hours and different conditions. Now, the current license, Chair, has a terminal hour, if you like, for alcohol, sales of alcohol at 9:30, which I think, as you know, as Chairman, is very restrictive and very early. And I don't think I recall seeing a license with a 9:30 cutoff for many a long year. The application is set out as described by the licensing officers. Hackney Social, as you may know, sir, is very well established now in this area. It does a lot for local charities as well, and there's evidence in the referees that we've put in, which I know you've read, and I won't labour you with those reports in detail. We might refer to them a little later on. What the premises have been doing over the last 2 years is effectively utilising temporary event notices. They've had about 26, 27 of those, and all of them have been granted up until 1:30 a.m. And during all of them, they've had live music or some other cultural event taking place. No issues have ever arisen on any of those temporary event notices, at least not that we've been told of, nor from the police or from the environmental health noise officer during that time. So we're left with one remaining rep, if you like, which is Mr. Tewitts today, which is in front of you. Importantly, there are no objections or representations from local residents in front of you today, which you might expect in a lot of the applications that come in front of you. I'll deal with the police conditions just at the end of my talk, if I may, and just address Mr. Tewitts' conditions. I think the best way I can do that, so to keep this all very brief, is to invite you and colleagues to look at page 101 in my agenda. I hope it's the same in your agenda. That's exactly it. So yeah, with a big black mark right across the top. That is my email in response to Mr. Tewett, which I think sets out the answers to the issues he's raised. Very briefly, on noise, we say there are no complaints regarding these premises at any time. We haven't been made aware of any. But what we have done is we've put in a detailed report from Mr. Vivian, which is at page 103 of your agenda, which again I'm sure you've read. And that deals with pretty well everything around the noise atmosphere of this premises. Mr. Vivian's familiar with the site because he's done many of the other arches as well in Bohemia Place, and he's done an exhaustive analysis of the noise conditions here. And the key thing that comes out from that is that it's noisy, because as you'll be aware, Chair and colleagues, on one side you have the Clapton Bus Garage, which is a pretty well 24-hour operation. On the other side of the premises, you have the Tesco Superstore, which runs for 24 hours and can be noisy with all the deliveries going on throughout the night. And I'm aware that they've had issues around that noisiness. And then right overhead, if you like, even above them, there is the railway line, which of course operates 24 hours a day, feeding into Hackney Central for passengers and so on, but also the big freight trains that go throughout the night, very, very, very long trains, making all the noise that they make. So it's a heavy sound environment. And the key points coming out from Mr. Vivian's report is that, first of all, we're in a railway arch, so the walls are very, very thick, very good insulation against sound escape there alone. The sound systems are professional. There's professional equipment in there. They have been very well tested throughout the 26 odd 10s they've had over the last 18 months to 2 years. They have good management on site and excellent transport facilities, of course, all around for people coming and going. So you've got Hackney Central Station, as I know you're aware of, and of course the bus routes up and down Mayor Street. There are about 20 different bus routes, and many of those run all through the night. Now his conclusions are set out at page 123 at 12.5, and if I may just quote from that one, he says, the operation of Hackney Social Unit until 2 would not result in an increase in average noise levels or have detrimental impact on residents in the surrounding area. And that's his conclusion. Now, attached to that are 3 documents which we put in with the application, which is the noise policy, the dispersal policy, and the risk assessment policies from page 128 onwards, and those went with the application. So we're seeking just a bit beyond core hours. In answer to the later hours, we would refer you to the evidence I've just given above and the noise report from Mr. Vivian to show that we can operate successfully, and of course the 10s. In terms of the capacity, sir, we would say that there's no requirement for a capacity condition on the license in any event, because the 182 guidance, which I know you're aware of at paragraph 2.12, indicates that if there are other regimes we can address the issue of capacity successfully, then they should be allowed to do so. And what we say here is that the fire risk assessment, which is referenced to in the documents we've just mentioned, mentions a capacity of 150 at the site, and that was again submitted with the application. Now, if they are in breach of that, having done their fire risk assessment, then they face prosecution from the fire authority, and I know from assisting the fire authority that they are carrying out prosecutions all over London at the moment in any event. So the police objection has been withdrawn. The 3 conditions, 3 matters I would ask you to have regard to finally are, these are on page 89 of your documents, Chair, are the deletion of condition 10, which relates to capacity. But if you want to retain a capacity condition, it refers to 150. There's an amendment to condition 11 there, which you see from the police submission, which talks about the appointment of 1 door supervisor post midnight. Yes. To risk assessment, we think that's very sensible. And also a new condition, if you like, at the end, 16, which won't be on your schedule of conditions, but is in the police document, which talks about no new entries after midnight, which we think is very useful condition, because it means then you won't have people trying to get in throughout the night. That's all coupled with pre-booked events at this site in any event. So there's also a big raft of references which I won't take you through, Chair, because I know you've read them and we'll probably refer to them in evidence. So those are the policies which I think I've addressed significantly. And finally, this is not in the cumulative impact policy area, which are some of those cases we were dealing with last week. This is outside of that area, so there is no heightened burden of proof, if you like, on the applicant to prove this case here. But we hope we've successfully established our case with all the experts' reports, the draft conditions, the lack of objection, if you like. And so I'm going to leave it there. So I think I've come in under 8 minutes again, I think.
You have 8:15, very good.
Even better than last week, perhaps. So what I would do is, we've got my 3 clients here, as you've seen. Mr. Richard Vivian's here from Sky Acoustics. So any questions you or your colleagues may have, we are here to answer them.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Just one point of clarification, Councillor Root. Do you have any point of clarification you'd like to make at this stage at all?
No, I don't. No, it's all very clear. Thank you.
Yeah, just Mr. Hughes, just on
Yes,
the off sales. I did read somewhere that you're willing to accept LP4 to stop off sales at 11. Is that right?
I would look to my clients, but I think that's probably right. So yes, Mr. Robinson's nodding. So
yeah.
I think that's right.
Okay, so I just wanted to sort of clarify that one. So that's good.
Yes, of course.
Excellent. Okay, so I'd like to move on now to invite the licensing officer, please, to come in and
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chewett, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the representation I made is at Appendix B3, which begins on page 67 in today's agenda. I'll keep this very brief. So as you've heard, it's the premises it benefits from an existing license, which is time limited to July 2023. This is a new application which seeks to authorise longer hours than those that are existing. So it's just some of those hours that are proposed to go beyond what we have in LP3, policy LP3 as core hours, and those days will be Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, as the application is proposed at the moment. So the site is, as you're aware, in Bohemia Place, which is a bit of a burgeoning nighttime economy. And as a result of that, we do have some issues of noise, which we in licensing have received complaints about in the past. But as Mr. Hughes has said in his opening submission, none of those are directly, as we're aware anyway, directly related to Hackney Social. Just going back to LP3, because what that does is essentially ask applicants to identify any risks, etc., that might arise if they are seeking to go beyond what's set out in policy LP3. And it's noted that the applicant has commissioned an acoustic report from Mr. Vivian, who's on today's call, and this sets out recommendations which will be implemented if the application is successful. And it seeks to address any concerns that I might have put in my representation also. There is that confusion, I would say, about the condition around capacity. It does say 60 in the application, but 150 in the fire risk assessment. So maybe that's something we could get to in the discussion phase. But I have noted that the application is well supported and the premises and the operation well supported by the additional submissions that have been made. And I've noticed that the police have withdrawn their representation. And that additional condition that's been agreed. But however, as I've mentioned, and I'm sure you'll get to it, the application as it stands proposes to go beyond core hours. This could have a negative impact on promotion of the objective. I had a brief conversation with Mr. Robinson about would he accept the core hours, and it was fair response from him that those hours wouldn't be suitable for this operation. So essentially that's why we just couldn't reach agreement on that. So that's why we're here this afternoon. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, brilliant. David, could you just expand just a little bit on how you feel about the capacity? And then just the other point of clarification is the other venue, because it's mentioned that Unit 11 were problematic in terms of noise. The other venues around there, what sort of times, Suba, maybe you could look at this as well, what sort of times do the other venues go to? And in regards to complaints, David, are you getting complaints from, like, Unit 11, Unit whatever, other units around this particular?
So Unit 11, this is the application for Unit 11.
Oh, this is the application for Unit 11. Sorry,
Yeah.
I think didn't I read somewhere that in the documents about noise emanating from other units?
There may have been, sir. It's not very specific which units they're coming from, but I don't think there's any allegation against our unit.
I mean, there have been noise complaints just generally. So the Bohemia Place on one side is the bus station, bus garage.
Yeah.
And then on the other side is the Tesco car park, if you like, most of the Tesco Morning Lane site. And then there's some residential premises above the commercial premises on Mayor Street, which in the past we've received some complaints about noise from. But there are a number of premises along Bohemia Place development. So whether specifically they come down to this site or the other sites, that's where some of the concern that I have came from. However, the applicant has commissioned an acoustic report which seeks to address those concerns, and if the license is granted, then the expectation is that the recommendations in the acoustic report will be implemented. So that should hopefully anyway prevent or at least mitigate any of the noise concerns.
Chair,
Sorry, Mr. Hughes, I'm just reading that bit now. Yeah, it says it's not clear from where noise complaints are coming from, but it appears on the record that none are related to Arch 11. So that's my misunderstanding of that one. But thank you for that. Councillor Root.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask because it does seem to me, I know that area quite well, and there really isn't anything by way of residential that's close by at all. It does seem to me that maybe the noise complaints are linked more to dispersal afterwards, to people going home. That seems to me to be the kind of way that kind of noise complaint might come from unspecified venues along Bohemia Place. Is that actually the case or not? And if it is, then the strength or weakness of the dispersal policy here might be something worth considering with regard to noise, as much as the acoustic report, actually.
I think you're right, Councillor. There are no specific allegations that any people leaving have been connected back to Unit 11. And of course, what has been happening with regard to Unit 11 over the last 2 years anyway is that they've been finishing at 9:30 in accordance with their early hours license in any event. So then we fall back, as you rightly suggest, onto both the noise report from Mr. Vivian and the dispersal policy, which is in your documentation, and we rely on those. We think there's strong documents. Mr. Vivian has checked them over, and he's assured that they're good documents, and they will stand the test of noise in this area, if you like. And if Mr. Vivian is around, wants to add to that.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. The dispersal policy is a best practice dispersal policy, taking into consideration the specifics of the area and access to public transport and an experience of operating the venue, and of course operating the venue to these hours under temporary event notices. But it's always a dynamic document, Councillor, and it can always be. We can always sit down with environmental health officers, with licensing officers, and optimise that document every so often. So in the event of any issues, but it's a good example of best practice for a licensed premises.
It's a bit like a health and safety policy, Councillor Root. I suppose it's a living document, so it doesn't just sit dustily on a shelf, or at least it shouldn't do. It should be amended from time to time to match conditions in the area.
Okay, great. I think we've moved into the discussion phase now. So, Councillor Root, if you've got any further questions you want to ask just generally before we open up the discussion, well, as we open up the discussion, rather.
Well, I suppose I'd just quite like to hear what Mr. Stewart's got to say about that observation about dispersal and noise. Just wonder, David, what are your thoughts on that?
In my experience, the complaints we got were more about music noise, not so much about dispersal. I think where the premises are located, just the nature of the exit routes and the dispersal away from that area would mean that crowds are quite dispersed, I would say, by the time they get to the bottom part of Mayor Street. So from my recollection, I don't recall crowd noise to be the complaints that we received in licensing. It's more about music noise.
Okay, in that case, I mean, I don't sort of almost physically see, given the acoustic report, how music could be a problem from this particular unit. I think it's too far along for it to be a problem for any residential units, really.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah. So if just to respond to that, yes. So within my representation and submission, so we do get complaints about activity within Bohemia Place, music noise complaints. However, whether they're specifically derived or come from the activities at Hackney Social, this is what's not clear. So the acoustic report was helpful for us to. Sorry?
It's unlikely, given the acoustic report.
Well, the acoustic report sets out recommendations to be implemented if my understanding is that it sets out recommendations to be implemented if the license is granted for those later hours.
Okay.
Content, Councillor Root? Yeah, brilliant. I don't want to labour this point too much, but I was a little bit confused in the application about the 12 music events Friday evenings, the dates were wrong because the dates have passed, October 21 to January 22. You did mention that it was a Hackney Council grant, but in actual fact, it was through the Arts Council, I believe. Why was all that stuff in there? Was that just to show your sort of cultural initiative and all that kind of thing? Is that why all that was in there?
It was there, Chair, to just, I suppose, elucidate on why the application was going in, and Mr. Robinson can let you know a bit more about it. It was backward looking in that those events had indeed taken place, but it was to show that we'd had events that were based in the community in Hackney, because the applicants are all based in Hackney, very much community based, and that they'd run late at night. So sorry if it was a little misleading, but that was the idea.
Well, just to show the sort of good faith of the council and all that kind of thing in regards to the recovery, the reopening fund and all that kind of thing. Yeah, that's what you were trying to highlight, was basically we have
worked with Hackney. Yeah.
Great.
And Mr. Robinson sees he's very good on these issues. He may just want to address you on that, Chairman.
Yeah, just very briefly, if you don't mind.
I'll just actually go over to Ben to talk about these bits because he dealt with most of the grants. Ben, are you there?
Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Jack. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, just to give a bit of context, because I think sometimes it's useful to know who these people are, who we are. So we're all Hackney residents. I was born and raised in Hackney. My two sons go to Mosbourne Academy in Hackney, and we are extremely passionate about the work that we do and providing a space for the local community, and that's what we've been doing and operating in the borough. And I think the application that Mr. Hughes submitted on our behalf was really trying to paint a picture that we're committed to upholding a good and positive environment and working with all sections of the community. So things like noise would be, if there was a noise complaint, that we would take that on very sort of personally and strongly, and do our best to do everything it takes to not have those issues. But and I think we really wanted to paint a picture of some of the partnerships and that we've been working with, whether it's grants from Hackney Council, from the Arts Council. We have this GLA partnership now, which is around developing Bohemia Place in terms of green spacing it, in terms of improving lighting and safety. We operate Bohemia Place Market, which is the flagship market in Hackney, I would suggest, with our vegan markets there, with our black-owned business market. And I think we share all that to say, like, we really care about the local environment. Like, it's everything, professionally and personally. And so those submissions that we put as part of our application, I think those are people that work closely with us and have seen our work and see the way we work and understand the importance of what we do. And I think the issue we have is that Hackney Social underpins all our market operation and all of our community projects. And as you can imagine, having a license to 9:30 for 60 capacity is not sufficient to be able to operate a long-term business. I don't know if Jack can talk a little bit more about.
I'll just dive in. I mean, we have a new landlord now. Archco has come in. The fees have gone up. The market now has to pay rent. The venue has to pay a higher rent. We're being charged for arches we weren't charged for before. It's really the license application, and the reason why I couldn't agree with David to it, even though we did offer to kind of settle on something, we wanted to get a little bit later, is we can't survive, with such a small capacity with opening times as such. And I've had some feedback from promoters for live music. They just they say 60 cap, and they promoted events in there. They've given evidence saying the venue seems half empty, even when it's sold out, because it's obviously a much bigger floor space than we've had capacity wise. And it's just very irregular, given all, we were part of the Great Escape Music Festival the other day, which was a multi-venue music festival around Hackney. And we were the earliest shutting venue by far. All the other music venues, that for live music, etc., have licensed similar to what we've applied for, if not actually quite a bit better in some cases. And we just think that's what's going to be able to make us continue to support what we're doing in Hackney, have the flexibility in the venue to do different kinds of events when we want to, and also just provide a kind of business viability that can get us through these new conditions and the general increase of price and everything. Because obviously turfing out all of your patrons at 9:30 in the evening when they've already bought one drink and there's only 60 people in there to begin with, it doesn't make much business sense, as you can imagine.
Okay, great, thank you for that. And just in terms of, because you've applied for plays, films, live music, recorded music, dance, late night refreshments, sorry, and alcohol. So which one of those is going to be predominant? I mean, you're going to be showing how many films you're going to be showing, you know, how much live music are you going to have as opposed to recorded, that kind of thing. Just give us a little idea of what you've got planned.
So we've been operating like 2 or 3 nights a week as a live music venue. You know, that's every week. I think actually managed 4. Like, for example, the football's being shown in there today as well. So the cinema screen, you know, kind of shows sport and football. But roughly speaking, they're probably 1 kind of DJ-led night a week potentially, and then 2 to 3 live music nights, and then maybe some stuff that's more potentially corporate or private bookings. But we're very much a flexible space. You know, we have had weeks where we've been a dance venue, a theatre, and then had a film on, and then had a live music band. It's not just kind of bog standard DJs playing regular hits for nondescript people. It's very much based around a certain act, you know, coming in with their fans for a really nice environment to deliver their music, etc. It's not just a Radio 1 playlist, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great. And just on because obviously it's in the noise report, there's a mention of a noise limiter which you've got there, which you can easily feed, you know, recorded sound through the noise limiter, but you can't really do that with a band because a band's different. You'd have to mic everybody up, and it'd have to be a rather large venue. So coming back to the live music, as you're going to have more live music in there, I'm just interested because bass travels a lot. You know, when you're doing the heavy sort of, you know, the reggae stuff, you know, are you going to be pumping out the bass in the way that we would expect, say, from a kind of like a, you know, I've been to some reggae gigs where the bass is really, you know, pumping, if you like, you know.
Of course. I mean, you know, you have to make sure that, you know, you can do what's feasible for the space. And I think having a constant thing where we're monitoring what the sound levels are outside, and again, you know, constant working with Richard Vivian on these to make sure the venue's not leaking sound. You know, what's great is if we get this new license, we can go and sign our new lease, which we're under pressure very much at this moment to sign our lease of Archco or leave the building. That's why it's quite an urgent kind of thing. So hopefully we can get this lease, and that gives us a 5-year lease, which will give us some investment into the space to make sure that even further we can mitigate any sound issues. And I'm actually kind of proposing to hopefully move where the door is a little bit and have lobby doors in there, which will add another level of sound in buffering, basically, to ensure that we can do these later night music events. Although I wouldn't imagine we'd have a live reggae band at 1 in the morning, just so you're aware. That wouldn't be, I don't think we'd ever do live past 11.
I'm just trying to get a feel, because I mean, as Councillor Root said, that particular location, although licensing have had complaints around the area, you know, it's not particularly residential as such. You are in an archway that's kind of relatively, you know, it's a good solid sort of structure. You mentioned soul, you mentioned jazz, you mentioned hip hop, you mentioned Afrobeat, you mentioned reggae and reggaeton as well. Is any one of those going to be predominant? Because I mean, obviously, if you're going to be turning into a reggae venue, say, and you know, it requires heavy bass, really, you know, ultimately to make it good, right? I mean, I'm sure you would agree.
I hesitate to interrupt you, Chair, but it's a good point. Before Mr. Robinson, I wonder if Mr. Vivian just wants to batten down that issue about bass noise for you.
Yeah, I can certainly help, and thank you, Councillor, for your very detailed questioning about music. And obviously, we're going at a level that some chairs wouldn't perhaps explore. In terms of operation of a live stage, there are methods that we can introduce to control acoustic instruments and to control that backline. So, for example, the point about bass is a very valid one.
Yeah. Remember, you're talking to a musician here of 30 years, so I know what I'm talking about.
I'm treading very carefully. So what we would do with a bass guitar, guitar, is that we'd DI it into the desk, and therefore, with we wouldn't have a large backline. In fact, we probably wouldn't have any backline. We would actually control monitors for the bass player himself or herself, and then everything is running through the limiter. So that leaves us with things like kick drum. Again, we can have some controls on that in terms of drum tuning and how we operate, and actually a single kick drum in that space, that separation distance isn't going to be a problem acoustically.
Yeah,
I
I
totally get the point.
disagree with you on the bass stuff. Really, I mean, if you're coming through an amp, you can't really DI it.
Well, I mean, we can disagree, but yes, you can, and that's what we do, because we have a
So
lot of
you're talking about shutting the amp down completely and just having it come through the PA.
Yes, and then we give a monitor feedback to the
Is that likely to happen?
It almost always happens in terms of maintaining some sort of quality in venues, because actually we want to keep the stage noise down for the benefit of other instruments. And there's definitely a move in sort of more modern music production to actually look at that kind of quality stage. We don't have to go as loud as everything going loud. We actually control each individual instrument, use a bit of technical expertise. You'll have seen from the PA specification, we're talking about quite high quality signal processing here, high quality amplification.
Yeah. Are you talking about not using amps at all? You're just going to DI everything?
We would probably look at, if we had a noise problem, we would use for lead guitar, we would use emulators. So we wouldn't go through any backline for lead guitar, but that hasn't been a problem to date. But if it were, there is a solution there.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't want to get bogged down in this really, 'cause it's kind of technical, really. I mean, I presume it's, ultimately you guys, you kind of know the deal. If things are getting out of control, then it just needs to be sorted out really at the time. Yeah. I can't imagine that you'll be employing a sound engineer with every single band, right? I suspect that'll be the case.
I don't think that's necessary, Chair. No.
So sorry, we do have because we actually do a lot of live music, and we already do a fair bit of reggae. We actually hosted the Hackney Reggae Festival in collaboration with the council in August, actually, which was great. We used every venue on the street to host a different reggae group in there, and you obviously worked with sound to make sure that wasn't too loud. And we do have a sound engineer internally in the venue who's full time, who's there, who's responsible for making sure that everything. And my bar manager, I used to run a venue in Brixton that was outdoors, and we had to be very sensitive about our neighbours. And it was a very normal thing for my crew to walk up and down the street, just see how loud it is, see if our venue's making noise, see if we need to do anything about it. And just simple stuff like that is ingrained in our members of staff, because noise is not an issue that we want to kind of fail on. And it's the space is small enough where it doesn't need to be so loud to be leaking out down, because it's quite far to our nearest neighbour.
Yeah.
You have to.
And
really
what about the sound class thing, when there's two crews turn up and they have a battle of the kind of big sort of reggae battle?
Oh, I mean, to be, we did have Channel One sound system. I don't know if you know who they were. They did do an event 2 years ago, I think, for New Year's Eve. We did have them down to the venue, and and I do that event. I've done in many venues all over London, etc. But again, it's just working with your limiters and working with the noise levels and making sure that you can have the nice sound system with the look and the feel, the warmth, but not necessarily the bass emanating all the way down the high street. And just
I mean, I think that I don't want to labor, as I said, I don't want to labor the point too much. The point is there's a range of musical activities you put down there: soul, jazz, hip hop, reggae, etc. What's the balance between them all? Are you going to be predominantly jazz, or because they're all very different, in terms of their propensity to kind of cause a problem? And I would say in terms of reggae, with the bass, which makes it good, right? That would be the biggest problem I think really you would have in terms of noise problems, would be the bass coming from that.
We've been. Oh, sorry, Ben, do you want to jump in?
Well, yeah, and you can jump in straight after. But I think it's a pretty even balance. We're pretty diverse in our what we like to program, but that balance has been shown across the events that we've had 10s on over the last 18+ months, and I think so that's 20+ 10s playing that variety of music with no complaints. So I think that's quite a good example of how we've been able to manage the noise.
Yeah, and how many reggae ones in that with heavy bass? I mean. Sorry, say that again.
Roughly about 20%. I'd say 20% is music from a kind of more slightly bassy vibe.
Okay, well that's useful. That's kind of what I was trying to get at, really.
Yeah,
got there in the end. Councillor Root, do you want to come in with any further questions, maybe around that?
I think your knowledge of music is altogether on a different level to mine, so I'm going to keep quiet.
I think we've got a gig for you there, Chairman.
Yes, I was going to say, definitely come down. What do you play?
Oh, let's not get into that on
Only after it's been decided.
Okay, Councillor Root, page 65, the conditions 19, 20, 21, 23, we just need to tidy these up a little bit. Just speak about the capacity, which we've already done with Mr. Tuitt. The 150 has been fire risk assessed, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Have we actually seen the fire risk assessment with the 150 on?
Don't believe that's an
It's
attack.
contained in the. You're right. It's contained in the risk assessment document. But if you take council's evidence at this point, there is a fire risk assessment which I've seen. But it's obviously these documents are technical. One didn't think about putting it in with the full application, but there is one. Council.
Right. Okay.
I think it just might be reassuring that the licensing department has had sight of it. That's all.
Yeah. Brilliant. And then
I'm really happy to provide that document. It is available. It is an
Yeah.
existing document.
Well, that would be useful for our lawyers to have sight of. Condition 20, speaking about the SIA supervisor, that condition's now been agreed, I believe, hasn't it? The new one with the police.
Yes,
So,
Chair. Yeah.
So Amanda, we just want to basically update that 20 to correspond with that agreement. And then 21, I don't know, Councillor Root, if you want to get into this about the numbers of people outside. There was, in the current conditions, is 18, and I think you're proposing 20.
I think we've cut. I'm taking a steer from Jack on this, but I think we did come down to 18, didn't we, Jack?
I think that was after a certain time, if I remember correctly. It was just, obviously it can't be that 7 in the evening.
Because
or whatever it
21
might be.
currently states. Councillor Root, do you want to come in here? I feel like I'm dominating a bit.
Oh, that's all right. No, as I understand it, it's 18 people until 8 o'clock. No, hang on a minute. Where are we?
That's correct.
Until
That's correct.
and then
Yeah.
6 people afterwards. Is that right?
That's say for maximum of 6 months. Yes, it says use of the external area should be limited to 18 persons and shall cease at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Save for a maximum of 6 smokers.
So basically, what that's saying is you can have up to 18 people outside until 8 o'clock in the evening, and then after that, it's reduced to 6 smokers only.
Yes. Now, thank you, Councillor. You raised an important point there. I just need to clarify with the client whether that is acceptable, whether we were looking to get less than 18 after 8 p.m. But
I would maybe be helpful to move that board more to like 10 or something. I mean, I will say a lot of other venues on the street do have quite a few people outside and chairs and tables till much later than 8 p.m. in the evening. But I mean, if that's a hold up, we're happy to try and abide by it. It's just if we do have a gig for 150 people, maybe having eight people outside, 6 people outside smoking after 8 might be tricky to manage. Is the only thing I would say. So,
is until 2200 hours.
Yeah, that would make more sense. We could keep 18 out there till then.
Also, with our night markets that finish at 10, our customers at the Hackney Social Lights side and enjoy the market.
So I think 2200 hours makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear what Mr. Tuitt thinks about that. I mean, 2200 hours for 18 and then 6 feels okay to me, but Mr. Tuitt's got a more of an awareness of the other issues in Bohemia Place.
2200 is in line with council policy and external activities and events. However, it's just that we've obviously had this application and that's been in the application, what's written there. So it might be something that, if you are minded to grant the licensees, it would could seek to amend that condition at that time. It's just I'd be a bit concerned about amending it at this stage.
Why? Sorry, I'm not clear why.
So we've received this application with that condition proposed as it reads now. My understanding is.
I would say
is that right, Gareth?
Yeah, I would say to my friend David that I think yes, it's been put in with the application, but it's been put in as a sort of working document anyway. So it's a suggestion of conditions, which would always be changed ultimately by consultation with officers or before committees. That's what I think about that.
So in that case, I mean, it's it's within the application. If it's to be later than that, then
I don't
it
think
could-
anybody's got a huge problem then with shifting
Yeah.
18 to 22, 2200 hours, and then 6 people afterwards.
Yeah.
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 It's just I suppose there's a short discussion to be had around the numbers, really. I mean, Jack and Ben and is it Jules? I mean, is 18, is that, could you do it with less than that, or do you think 18 is a good number? Because obviously, from our point of view, having less people outside is better, but I just want to make it work for you as well.
Yeah, 18 would be preferable. You know, that's around about 10% people wanting to have, you know, a cigarette. We wouldn't let people outside for any other reason than to smoke. They wouldn't be out there to chill past the evening, basically. So yeah, it's just for people to be able to have a cigarette, you know, in between bands. Because obviously, when you have a band on, what tends to happen is everyone watches the band and then they all go to the bar for a cigarette at the same time. And then as the next band gets ready to go on, you know, it tends to be a kind of flood. So if you have just 6 people at like 8 p.m. in between the changeover of a support act and a main act, everyone's going to flood the door to have a cigarette at that point in one go. So just six people could be, you know, a big old queue in the venue, you know, just and slightly unpleasant experience for the people who are there, because they won't understand. You try to explain to, you know, people they'll be going with 6 people outside, they'll think that's kind of very odd, given it might only be 8 o'clock in the evening.
Okay, Mr. Chewett, thank you.
Yeah, I think given the nature of the Bohemia Place and the activity that you see outside the neighbouring premises, I think 18 until 2200 is fair.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
That's good. And then just moving on to 23, again about the off sales. I just want to clarify again that we're going to move to LP4, so off sales stops at 11.
No problem. No problem from my side at all. That's perfect.
Because I think that was accepted in the documents, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's good. There was one more thing I had in my mind. What was it?
Was it the police condition, Councillor? The further police condition, but no new entries.
That's the one. Yeah. Just wanted to clarify that one as well, because that needs to be put in the conditions, Amanda.
Yeah, that's agreed with the police today, and we think that's sensible, because many of these events are pre-booked, as you know, anyway. So people coming queuing up late at night.
Okay, so I think we've sort of reached the end of the discussion phase. We've had a good discussion, I feel. Councillor Root, I hope you agree.
Yeah.
So we would move on to closing remarks now. So Mr. Hughes, if you'd like to just make some closing remarks, that would be great. Thank you.
I don't think so, Chair. I think all the points have been made. You've heard my opening remarks, and you've heard eloquently from my clients. Also, you've got the further references in front of you, which I think speak volumes to themselves. So I'm not going to add anything further and waste more time.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Chewett.
Thank you, Chair. I've nothing further to add at this stage.
Yeah, I just want to come back just on the Sunday. I'm a little bit precious about Sundays, because also, you know, LP3 says 10:30 on a Sunday. I'm just asking you, how would you feel about reducing the hours from 23:30 down to 10:30 on a Sunday?
So would that be 10:30 stop? Is it kind of 10:30 stop serving and music and get everyone out by 11, or get everyone?
Yeah, we stop serving alcohol by 10:30 and move everyone on by 11.
If that's something that you guys feel should be in place, I'm not. It's a little out of sync with what other big venues on the street have, and I, you know, I do feel a little bit like, you know, we're not trying to have anything out of the ordinary, and it's a little bit out of sync with what the venues around me have. But if that's something that can get the license through and is a major issue, it's not going to be the hill I die on.
I just wanted to get a feel, because obviously Councillor Root and I can have a discussion around that, but I just wanted to sort of find out where you're at with that, really.
Yeah, we really want to get a kind of Sunday jam session going, and you know, that's been on feedback from the kind of feelings that's a nice kind of time to kind of finish up. You finish at 11:30, people can kind of still head home. It's not the biggest deal to finish at 10:30. I don't know. I'd like to still keep it till midnight, you know, and kind of wind down at 11:30, because I think again it just gives flexibility for the space. But it, you know, if it's seen as a point of contention.
If I may ask a question, does the policy, I haven't got it right in front of me, but does the policy envisage slightly later Sundays on the nights before bank holiday Mondays?
No, there's no.
No, there's no
thinking for that.
distinction there
Right.
for that.
Right.
No.
Okay.
I mean,
And
I
I think Gilbert, it's worth thinking about where this venue is again
Yeah.
in terms of the 11:30. You know, perhaps this is something we can discuss offline. But
Yeah.
you know, it's not right slap bang in a residential area, or it's not. It's you know
No.
the fact that it's school day on Monday doesn't make such a difference here. I don't think.
Yeah.
No, Jack, it was just to get an idea, really, you know, as to where you're at with it, you know, just so we have just evidence, really, and to add to our discussion.
I mean, if you're minded to go down that route, Chair, could I suggest that we look at the bank holidays, the Sunday before bank holidays, if you're minded to go down that route?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we might have a later out, because obviously on those nights that people are feeling a bit more relaxed and chill because it isn't a working day the day after. But
yeah, okay, great. So step 8 is final point of clarification, if there are any, and if there aren't, I think we can basically call this part of the meeting closed. So I can't see any.
You're not
points of
going to do a
clarification.
song for us, Chair, before we adjourn? That might be quite nice.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for attending this part of the meeting. So if you could all leave now, those relevant, and then we will obviously deliberate all this afterwards. So thank you very much for coming today, and
Thank you, Chair. Thank you,
putting your views forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Cheers.
Very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, so just clicking back to the agenda.
Chair,
So we want to.
Chair, I need to say something.
Yep.
That's okay. We've received a email from the press office asking about the meeting being held in private session. That's in respect of the Dolphin application, and they've asked for it to be held in public session for the applicant for their views to be made public, basically. We know that the police have requested that the application be heard in private session. So that's what we've decided to do today. So it'd be grateful if you could clarify that when you're making your opening comments, basically, that we our position on the closed session, that it needs to be in closed session.
Can I ask why police have requested it? Because are there some sort of is there?
Yes, they said that there's an investigation pending.
Exactly. If there's an investigation pending, then that's obviously.
We didn't know that. We didn't know that prior to when they notified us. So
for the record,
unfortunately,
as far as I'm concerned, you know, we wouldn't necessarily, just because the police have requested it, have a hearing in private. But unless there's a sub judice reason because of a pending case, and if there is, which it looks as though there is in this particular case, then we probably have to have it in private. We haven't got very much choice.
Yes. We didn't have enough time to put it on the website, unfortunately, so it wasn't made known until probably the time of the meeting today that people first heard that. So apologies for that. We wouldn't normally do that, but unfortunately everything was done at a late stage, so apologies. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Root, for that. I agree with you on that one. Yeah, so this will be in closed session. You've heard the reasons why. So that's.
Chair, you need to read the points as set out in the chair's briefing, please.
Okay, so on the advice of the legal officer and with the agreement of the monitoring officer and the deputy speaker in accordance with paragraph 70.3, part 4.2 of the council's constitution, can we agree that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of agenda item 6 due to the disclosure? Sorry. Can we get that on? Sorry, let me start again. Can we agree that the press and the public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of agenda item 6 due to the disclosure of exempt information as defined under paragraph 7, Part 1, Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Once agreed, the live stream will end, but the recording will continue. The meeting will progress in a closed session. So are we in agreement, Councillor Root?
Thank you. Yes, we are.
And sorry about my phone, folks.